The story begins with a young boy who finds solace in nightly conversations with a mysterious person over the radio, a figure who serves as his emotional support. Years later, at the start of the semester at Furin Academy, a teacher introduces himself to the class. In a moment of nervousness, the teacher bites his tongue but continues, explaining that the formerly all-girls school has decided to become co-ed this year. He warns the female students that the transition might be difficult but asks them to adapt. Everything seems to be proceeding normally until a male student suddenly stands up and interrupts, criticizing the teacher for biting his tongue. He argues that such a mistake makes the speech imperfect and necessitates an immediate restart. When the flustered teacher asks for his identity, the boy introduces himself to the entire class as Arisu Yamabuki, the heir to the Yamabuki group. He declares his mission to lead Japan into the future, a goal that requires absolute perfection. He oddly adds that his favorite fruit is the peach and claims to possess a great aura, though he insists he is also charming. However, he announces that he is not yet 100% perfect and requires the girls' assistance to bridge the final gap. To everyone's shock, he asks the female students to line up and whisper, "I love you," into his ear. 3 hours later, the male students confront Yamabuki, complaining that his stunt has caused the girls to look at all the boys with suspicion. Undeterred, Yamabuki asserts that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. A young lady then approaches him, noting his wealthy family background, and asks if his request was a method of seeking a girlfriend, offering herself as a candidate. Yamabuki stands and approaches her closely, only to analyze her voice. He politely rejects her, stating her voice lacks power, and excuses himself to go to the bathroom. He claims to be so perfect that his bodily functions operate on a strict schedule. While the other students are baffled by his eccentric personality, his friends from a previous school explain the truth. Yamabuki has been searching for a specific person since his second year of high school. He does not know what she looks like, so he relies entirely on his hearing to identify her voice. As Yamabuki prepares to use the restroom, he receives a message from his mother, which triggers a memory of his high school days. His only joy had been a radio program hosted by a girl named Apollo titled Mayonnaise Hearten. The show, which consisted of her talking about her daily school life, had very few listeners, but Yamabuki found strength in her broadcasts. She always ended the show by saying that doing the program gave her the strength to continue. Lost in thought, he is suddenly approached by a girl who whispers that she loves him. He initially dismisses it, focused on his schedule, but then pauses. The voice sounds remarkably similar to Apollo's. However, caught off guard and needing to relieve himself, he runs to the bathroom, leaving the identity of the girl unconfirmed. During lunch, the Radio Fusion Club begins its broadcast. The audio quality is terrible, marred by distortion from cheap microphones, but Yamabuki realizes the voice speaking sounds exactly like the one he is searching for. He recalls that Apollo stopped broadcasting at the end of his first year of high school and deleted her archives. However, based on the information he had gathered that she was his age and wanted to attend a girls' school with a sea view, he had calculated that she would likely be at Furin Academy. This deduction was the primary reason he enrolled the moment the school went co-ed. He stands before the broadcasting room door, feeling that he is a mere 1% away from completion. When he opens the door, he finds 4 different girls inside. He tries to speak, but one of them angrily reprimands him for entering without permission. Because the microphones are live, the entire school hears the altercation, with some students recognizing him as the boy who nearly defecated in the hallway. Yamabuki apologizes but focuses intently on the girls' voices. The problem is that they all share similarities with Apollo. The girl with black hair shares her intonation. The one with braids sounds like Apollo did when calm. The pink-haired girl sounds like Apollo when angry. And the white-haired girl whispers just like Apollo did when hiding from her parents. It has been 3 years, and his memory is hazy, leaving him insecure. The girls, assuming he wants to join the industry, explain their diverse goals. The white-haired girl wants to be a VTuber, the black-haired girl a presenter, the one with braids a singer, and the pink-haired girl a voice actress. However, they quickly distance themselves from him due to his earlier "I love you" stunt, which had been so distorted by rumors that some believe he wanted a lover to bear his children. The pink-haired girl calls him a degenerate and demands he leave. Yamabuki attempts to explain that he came to find someone, swearing on his family name that he has no hidden intentions other than to hear a specific voice. He asks if any of them is Apollo, but they look at him with confusion, as if he were talking about a brand of fried chicken. One girl tells him to leave, noting that only club members are allowed inside. Thinking quickly, Yamabuki declares himself an expert in voice work and points out the club's critical flaw: their equipment is terrible. He proposes that if they let him join, he will provide new, professional-grade equipment, revealing he recently made 1 million yen through an investment fund. Enticed by the offer, the black-haired girl and the aspiring VTuber agree, and even the girl with braids admits his voice is pleasant. Yamabuki boldly declares he will become the club president and take them to the top. The pink-haired girl objects, noting the current president is rich, but the others are already considering what to give him in return. They decide on a prank. They make Yamabuki turn around, stand behind him, and simultaneously whisper, "I love you." The combined sound strikes a chord in him, sounding exactly like Apollo's full voice. Flustered, he uses the excuse of needing to eat and flees. Alone, Yamabuki reflects on his true motivation. He remembers Apollo with affection, specifically a moment when he broke character and messaged her that he loved her too and wished her good night. As an adult, he is deeply embarrassed by this memory. Confessing to a stranger over the radio feels like the only mistake of his life. He wants to find her not just to reconnect, but to access her files and delete the evidence of his confession to prevent any future extortion against the Yamabuki group. Yamabuki is eventually welcomed into the broadcasting group, though he is treated as a glorified errand boy and nicknamed Buki. Despite the pink-haired girl's hostility and the toys they pile on him, he remains focused on observing them to identify Apollo. The next day, he encounters Uzuki, the beautiful student council vice president. While she records announcements, Yamabuki notes that she is a model student and highly popular. However, he critiques her performance. While her voice is like a silver bell, she stumbles over words and lacks technical skill. He scolds her for her errors, but her classmates defend her, finding her clumsiness charming, a concept of imperfection that Yamabuki fails to understand. He tentatively rules her out as Apollo. He then meets Nene, the pink-haired girl, who is asked to read lines from a manga that Apollo also loved. Nene is a star in class and an aspiring voice actress, but she too suffers from pronunciation issues. When she catches Yamabuki observing her, she loudly accuses him of being a stalker and a pervert to her friends. Yamabuki realizes that hearing a voice through a phone filter is different from reality. Complicating his search, he decides he must observe them more closely. His notes are eventually read by Kirino, the aspiring VTuber. Kirino is clumsy and partially blind to her surroundings, accidentally passing gas near him and falling down the stairs. When he tries to speak to her, she claims she is in the middle of a live stream. Yamabuki interrupts the stream to greet the audience and then leaves, unimpressed by her lack of professionalism. He grows frustrated, remembering how Apollo passionately dreamed of using her voice for a career, a dream he had promised to support by learning everything about the industry. He feels these girls are not taking that dream seriously. Later, during another disaster of a broadcast where Uzuki makes repeated mistakes, Yamabuki snaps. He storms the broadcasting room, shouting into the microphone that the club is a disaster. He tells the entire school that they will never progress if they continue to treat the girls like princesses rather than professionals. He declares that regardless of whether Apollo has forgotten their promise, he has not. He announces that he will guide the Radio Fusion members to perfection, whether they want to be presenters, VTubers, singers, or voice actresses, demanding an answer to his dedication. The girls kick him out of the room immediately. As he stands outside, dejected, he receives a notification. Apollo has started a transmission. Inside the room he just left, the voice comes to life. Apollo speaks to her listeners, admitting her heart nearly stopped because she never thought anyone would try to find her. She apologizes for hiding her identity. She reveals that although she complained about having few listeners in the past, she was truly happy just to have Yamabuki by her side. She confesses that the "I love you" she whispered earlier wasn't a prank or for the general audience, it was meant solely and exclusively for him.